With that down, let's move on to this. I mentioned on the show yesterday that while we've kind of addressed this, I've addressed this a number of times on the show, but I don't think I've ever actually done it as a pure topic. And I want to do it as a pure topic so that from now on, I actually have a video I can just give people a link to when they bring this up. And the question, of course, is the issue that comes up whenever anybody wants to talk about box office and then bring it into a historical perspective, which is adjusted for inflation. You see it everywhere. You see it everybody trying to talk about it, adjusted for inflation. And going all the way back to my movie blog days, before AMC, before Collider, before all of that, I've had people ask me, John, why don't you do adjustment for inflation? This is going back like 15 years. And I would always give the same answer, and I want to talk about it right now. Here's the reason I never bring inflation and why I believe it's an idiot's cause to bring inflation into box office discussion. Don't get me wrong. Inflation is an interesting data point. It is. When you got a box office master like a Dan Murrell who starts talking about inflation, he presents it as great, interesting data points. But what I'm saying is for the rest of the conversation that goes on amongst the internet, it's almost as if people feel like it makes some kind of point. Here's why you should never, in box office discussions, adjust for inflation. Number one, inflation assumes, it makes a radical assumption. Inflation discussions assumes that if a movie from a particular era or year was released today, then that movie would sell just as many tickets today as it did back in its era or year.
Yeah.
You have to understand this. The moment you say, well, that movie from 1978, adjusted for inflation, today it makes $1 billion. Well, wait a minute. You're assuming that if that movie from 1978 were released today, in today's economic environment, in today's industry environment, in today's social context, you're making the assumption that if you took that movie from 1978 and you put it out today, that movie would sell just as many tickets, only at today's dollar value, as it did in 1978. And that is idiotic. That's idiotic. That is an asinine assumption. I mean, let's just take a look at a couple of things. And there's like 40 things. Let's just take a look at a couple here. Number one, try to compare it to 1978. Fewer people go to the movies today than they did before. There's no point in comparing it. Number two, ticket prices. We're going to look at this in a second, more in depth. Ticket prices were cheaper in previous eras, even when taking inflation into consideration, making it easier and more attractive for people to go to the theaters. There is more competition today from a much larger number of films being released. The advent of streaming. There was no such thing as streaming when that movie came out in 1985 or 1978. Other competition for disposable income like video games. Young adults, full adults, young parents, teenagers are spending a significant more chunk of their disposable income on that sort of entertainment rather than movies than they did in 1978. Also, movies today have much shorter theatrical runs than they did before. Well, John, let's put this into a practical example, okay? Whenever the conversation about movie inflation comes up, and you can take that down right now, Jonathan. The movie that everybody brings up. Well, you want to know what the real biggest movie of all time is? It's Gone with the Wind. You know why? Because Gone with the Wind, according to inflation, has made 4.5, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, has made $4.5 billion. I mean, double Avatar, right? Made $4.5 billion. But Gone with the Wind is also the ultimate example about why trying to bring up inflation in these discussions is absolute horseshit. Let's take a look at some facts about Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind had a theatrical run of almost 700 days. It ran from 1939 to 1941. Today, You're lucky if you get a 45-day theatrical window. That's your theatrical window today. Gone with the Wind got to be in theaters for nearly 700 days.
Also, it was re-released decade after decade after decade throughout the years. It didn't just that's its initial theatrical run, but movies were re-released all the time. We don't do that anymore.
Then, here's the other thing. The ticket price in a movie theater in 1940 was 25 cents. Adjusted for inflation, that's $5.47 in today's money. Understand this. Paring up the economic situation, that means going to a movie then was 3 times cheaper than going to a movie now. The cost of movie tickets has gone up faster than inflation has. Now, why do you say 3 times? Well, there's a bunch of different numbers out there, so I just went to Cinemark's site.
Right.
Cinemark itself says for their movie theaters, let's start, they say, with the basics. The average price of a movie ticket now in the US is $16.08. But that's just the average. In some places like New York City, you might pay over $23 for a single ticket. I know if you go to a premiere night on IMAX in AMC, it's a $25 ticket.
Because rent is in New York, and that's what they have to pay.
So you might pay over $23 for a single ticket, while in Wyoming, it could be as low as $9.08. That's a huge difference. Movie ticket prices vary, blah, blah, blah.
There's also a lot less people in Wyoming.
Yeah, there's also a lot less people in Wyoming. So, okay. So by today's dollars, people only had to spend $5 for a movie ticket, whereas today they got to spend 16. Adjusted for inflation, again, the Guinness Book of World Records says Gone with the Wind made $4.5 billion. I have to ask this question. I love Gone with the Wind, by the way. It's one of the movies that made me fall in love with movies. So don't take this as some anti-Gone with the Wind thing. I love that movie. But here's a question. Is there anybody out there stupid enough to believe that if Gone with the Wind were just released in theaters today with a 45-day window, with ticket prices being 3 times more expensive on par than it was before, does anybody believe that Gone with the Wind would make $4.5 billion at the box office were it released today? Obviously, nobody believes that. And if you don't believe that, then why are you bringing up inflation? If you do not believe that Gone with the Wind, if it were released today in theaters, would still make $4.5 billion, then I gotta ask you, why are you bringing up inflation? Because clearly it doesn't mean anything. It's pointless. One other little data point I want to throw in here with Gone with the Wind. In 1941, when Gone with the Wind was still in theaters, only 1% of American homes had televisions. Less than 1%, actually. Less than 1% of American homes in 1941 actually had one of these telly boxes. You don't think that, forget streaming, I'm even just talking the 12 channel dial? 12 or 13 channel, click, 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 put on
You're
channel
lucky
4.
if you had one channel.
Yeah, turn on channel 5 to watch Knight Rider. I mean, just that alone. There was no home viewing option. It was gather around the radio, kiddies, and listen to the murder mystery. Well, by the way, if you want to do that, True Noir.
True Noir, the
Go check out
assassination
True
of
Noir.
Anton Cermak. Available now, truenoir.co.
So again, 1% of home. Does anybody believe that if Gone with the Wind came out today, they would make $4.5 billion? I want to submit that if Gone with the Wind were to come out today, there's no way I can prove this. I'm just pulling this number out of my ass, but it's what I'm guessing. I'm betting that movie makes about $600 million.
Oh, no, because it would be protested for glorifying the antebellum South.
Well,
its flavors.
As cultures, we live and learn. But we live and learn as a culture and as a society. But I mean, that aside, I don't think that movie will be doing well if it made $600 million.
I don't even think it makes that. And if we were talking about like the same shooting style, like someone wanted to do an artsy throwback to 1930s film, oh, you're making like 12 million.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky. Now, I believe that as you close the gap, we're talking about 1941, but as you close the gap, some of the extreme differences become lessened, but they are there nonetheless. One of the things that people have been bringing up a lot with me lately is trying to compare this Superman to Man of Steel, for example. By the way, I prefer Man of Steel. It's my favorite Superman movie of all time. I am a bigger Man of Steel fan than you are, whoever you are. Unless your name is Zack Snyder, in which case, thank you for making Man of Steel. But here's the thing. It's not just these data points I put up before. Let me bring these ones up again. It's not just these data points. Fewer people going to the movies. Ticket prices cheaper. These are all true for when did Man of Steel come out? 2012, 13, 14, 15? Somewhere around there, right?
2011, 2013.
Ticket prices were cheaper
2013.
then. But here's the big cultural difference. When Man of Steel came out,
13.
it was a budding golden new era for comic book films. The general buzz and feel around comic book movies were at a near all-time high.
The year after Avengers had come out.
Avengers come out. Marvel had just had a couple of billion-dollar films. Everybody was loving this new genre. And by the way, when Man of Steel come out, it didn't have a dilapidated, broken down, fallen apart DCEU that it was trying to recover from.
It was coming off the Nolan trilogy.
It was coming out.
Batman.
It had hope and optimism going for it. James Gunn's Superman, it's trying to dig itself out of the junk. It's literally trying to dig itself out of the shit pile that the DCEU created. And on top of that, at the same time, while the MCU is weaker than it's ever been. That's just another example about there's 40 or 50 or 60 different variables. So you try to bring up whatever. And by the way, if you want to bring up inflation for box office results, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to apply inflation to production costs too. But that's all besides the point.
Sure.
The basic premise goes back to that original submission. Inflation assumes that if a movie from a particular era of the year were released today, then that movie would sell just as many tickets today as it did back then. And I say that is obviously nonsense. Nobody believes that. And if you want to bring it down again to its base argument, does anybody out there believe that if Gone with the Wind were to come out today with modern context, other entertainment options, disposable income competition, theatrical windows, blah, 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 blah. Does anybody believe Gone with the Wind makes $4.5 billion? Nobody does. And if you don't believe that, if you don't believe Gone with the Wind would make $4.5 billion were it to come out in theaters today, then you confess that the inflation argument is totally pointless. It's an interesting data point, Rob.
Yeah.
It is an interesting data point, but ultimately meaningless.
But you also have to take into consideration the society itself that the movie is released into.
Sure, absolutely, which changes constantly.
Well, it changes constantly, and subject matter. There's a reason why Westerns fell from favor. It was played out as a genre, and it went away for a while. I mean, it Gone with the Wind came at a particular point in time, coming off the heels of, by the way, that was a huge, giant bestseller. So it was part of the national zeitgeist the way things aren't today. So that's part of it too.
Anyway, guys, we could ramble on with this, but we got to move on. Basic to say is when people ask me, John, since they've been asking me for the last 15 years, John, why don't you ever bring up adjusted for inflation in the box office? That's why I don't bring up adjusted for inflation, because it's absolutely pointless and meaningless. Anyway, guys, do me a favor. When the segment of this comes out, bookmark the URL. And whenever you see people asking, why doesn't John ever bring up inflation? Just share the URL of this video to them. And that way it'll make my life easier. Anyway, whatever you guys think about the whole thing, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.